Sean, I want to go back to one thing before we break up. You talked about that Star Trek game. And if I'm hoping that you're talking about the things you've learned relatively recently that could at least reduce the chance of such an experience again. That's what we're hoping for, right? So with that in mind, let's examine what you said about the basic problem of that game, which you described here and also in text and at the website as not being on the same page.
Right.
I'm not sure I don't buy that. I think that if you got all on the same page, you would have that tasteless nonsense that Helma described so perfectly.
Sure.
And that's what I was up against with the Hero System fans. They idealize that same page so thoroughly. They have these huge consensus meetings. They make up their characters carefully, with all together to make sure that all the niches are properly aligned and that every trope is in place, that we have covered every possible danger that the group might face. I've got this defense, I've got that defense, that kind of thing. And also that we know exactly how deadly this game will be. We know exactly how funny this game will be. There's a huge checklist. I don't know if you've seen it, the Hero System checklist, pre-campaign checklist, right? And everybody signs off on it. And that's how you play comic book superheroes, or for the Hero System, according to them, anything, to get on the same page. So what is it about the generation of, not of fiction, but the generation of circumstances for the group creativity that does bring people together, enhances the possibility of successful play, but isn't the creation of all this agreement and homogenization so that we know exactly how it's going to go? Because that's what I don't want in any Star Trek game I ever play. In fact, I despise it. I would be that guy so badly. I would be the drug-addicted, murder-happy crew member before I accepted that we were going to play in beautifully agreed upon this kind of Trek. And yet, I am also dedicated to a specific kind of Star Trek, and I am playing that way, and I insisted on certain parameters that at least would honor that before playing this. So why was I so insistent on X and Y, but refused and would never play if we settled upon XYZ? See the difference? Right? I want to be on the same page, but I don't want it to be the same.
You don't want the answer to be
right. I don't want the page to be complete. Right?
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, that comes back to the thing about outcomes that I was saying before. I think the thing you discover through play, and this is whatever the purpose is. I think this applies to challenge-based games, or story theme-based. We can call them games or whatever. It applies to everything, I think. And because if this was not true, then you would not be sitting here
we wouldn't do it
with other people.
Absolutely,
we would not do it.
Yeah.
And so you are looking for some question to be answered, in my opinion. I kind of conceptualize it as a question and answer, even though nobody is just the asker and nobody's just the answerer. Everybody's kind of posing questions to each other.
Right. It's that state of the unknown that I'm talking about from a creative standpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go on.
But I think it's important to not give the answers before play.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have these unanswered things that you want to answer through play, and it can be anything, but it needs to be something. Otherwise, because if I were to answer it myself, I would not play with other people.
Right. Because all they'll do is screw it up. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. And so I want to know what the other people answer to questions that I have, and other people want to know what I answer to the questions that they have. And again, it's irrelevant what the purpose of play is. This is just like a basic.
No, this is a base.
needs
We're talking
to-
about the medium. When we talk
Yeah,
about the
it's
medium,
medium,
then the
right?
purposes can be left aside. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really what in the end like resolution and outcome is in my opinion, right?
Yeah.
So it's you pose a question and you get an answer. It's not exactly because the way you defined resolution back in the day was like, how do we agree to a new event entering the fiction, basically, or a new, not exactly. I don't want to like misquote you.
No, it's
I guess
reasonable. The point is we have to get there somehow, and we've all agreed that this is
Yeah.
the way we're going to do it. Right.
Right, but I think that frames it in terms of the edges, it's like in terms of fiction, in terms of shared imagined space, and I think there's a kind of more general way of approaching that, which is like it's just the answer, right? So you pose a question, somebody, whoever poses a question, there is some rule, process, procedure, or not.
There will
and
be
then
a
an
procedure of
answer-
some kind, whether it's in the text or not.
Well,
Who
yeah,
knows?
obviously
Right.
there is
There will be a procedure, right?
There will be a procedure to follow, and then an answer will be reached. And then you ask another question. Somebody or everybody asks another question, and then there is a procedure, and then another answer is reached. And I kind of I started conceptualizing it as questions and answers, because I think it's a great metaphor, because I think it really plays into the expectation of, like, if I ask something that I want the other person to answer, right? I'm not going to answer it myself.
Right. Right. That Paul Sega did a really nice job of articulating that originally.
I wanted to come back to what Sean described when he tried to describe his Star Trek game, and said that there were two things that kind of made me thinking. The one thing was we didn't seem to get onto the same page. The other thing was the players didn't talk about the game outside of playing. And that got me thinking about both what happened in Primetime Adventures and what happened now when we're playing Mountain, which that sometimes you simply have to back up and talk about things in the game if you don't want to destroy it. And I think that's really important. It's not this idea of you have a GM and it's his or her, they have to make sure things go smoothly in some way. That's not true. It's the whole group.
I agree. And that's why I deride that attitude as being a kindergarten teacher or a nanny, right, or something like that, because I don't want to be a child. I don't want to be the nanny, even worse. I'd almost rather be one of the children than the nanny. But the thing I'm trying to say here is that we don't ruin the fiction when we speak outside of the fiction to each other during play.
On the contrary.
Right. And that if we are all interested in what is going on, then we don't have to treat that as a disaster. And you may be surprised, but there are aesthetics about play that are stated by many that very much focus on not breaking the imagined medium by talking outside it, whereas I don't think it breaks it. Now, this is very tricky, though, because let's look at that thing, which is one of the things you've spoken about learning, although you didn't mention it this time, was the issue of people asking, can I do this? Can I do that? And you have quickly observed that I think I'm pretty nice about it, but I simply don't honor the question, right? The question is disallowed and I move on. But does that mean that we don't want people talking about it or bouncing it off of each other? No, we don't want it. I don't think either Jerry or I mind that at all. What we mind is when it's confused between let's talk about what we're doing and let's do it, and confusing those at the same time. So you have people talking as if they are initiating an action, but another person is interpreting that as saying, what shall we do? Maybe we could do this. And and people start cross-talking, and one person is talking about actions and another person is talking about suggestions, and another person then says, oh no, we're going to do it this way, and starts announcing actions that are completely contradictory. And under those circumstances, you could fairly be blamed for saying, I mean, you can't be blamed for saying, well, the problem here is talking out of character, right? But that's not the problem. The problem is that we have lost track of the authorities of situation. And we don't know when we will move to resolution. And everybody is talking at different levels of play simultaneously, different steps of play simultaneously. Sean, this is endemic to playing D&D. This situation among the players is so common among Dungeons and Dragons play for all generations of it, that in many people's experience, that is playing Dungeons and Dragons, right? So, Sean, what were you going to say?
Well, and I think it was a good example we had, I think, in the Lamentations. Hey, I think probably I even said, hey, can I do this or that? But it's also a form of fishing, I think.
Right, because there's toxic forms of it. Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Hey, can I do this thing? And you're looking for the the player magic jigsaw piece to this puzzle. Hey, can I swing across the?
Right.
I try to give the answer while I'm running is, well, you can try to do that, sure. Right. Mm-hmm. But it's that non-committal, do what you want.
Right. But they're looking for the indication that that's the right tactic to use. This is the key. Right.
As opposed to it being a purely mechanical question. Hey, I'm not quite sure.
Right.
Will this skill allow me to go across the chasm? Completely different.
So what you're doing there is we're seeing the difference between merely asking what are the procedures of play, which is one thing. Because that's almost, I would say, overwhelmingly, that's not actually what's being asked, right? What's actually being asked is, what do I do either cooperatively? Here, Game Master, I'll do the thing that will make everybody, see, I'm a Lieutenant Game Master now, right? I'm Deputy. I'm asking, if I do this, is this going to be great, right? This is going to be great. And everybody will be happy because it'll be so cool. And you will look great as the game master by saying yes to this, right? And so that's one way of doing it. Another one is a little more strategic in, can I, meaning, will you cut my head off or punish me or treat me as a bad player if I do this, right? And you're trying to defensively. So either of those, though, have moved into a form of play where nobody believes that they'll have fun if they just use the system to do stuff. That's what those are based on. There's no trust whatsoever in the procedures of play as such. That's kind of the problem.
I think that it's all fundamentally gets back to system matters and the idea that if you're going to play a game, whatever it is, play it because because it's attractive to you in that way, or it allows, like Claudia was saying, it allows you to answer certain questions, whatever, as opposed to I guess a more casual form of social interaction.
Well,
whereas
I used to be really kind of cranky about this, and I distinguished, and I made no friends by talking about this, by the way. I distinguished between socializing, which I summarized as the phrase of, I'm glad I did this thing as opposed to some other thing with you people here as opposed to anybody else, right? So it's not generic. Socializing successfully means I'm glad I did this thing with you specifically, as opposed to what I called social huddling or just huddling, where it doesn't matter who it is as long as we all just kind of huddle together for warmth or whatever. And it doesn't even matter what we do as long as we just kind of, are together and we get our little badge for being together, whatever that badge is. And as many of you know, I am becoming extremely vocal in my dislike of fandom, which I've never liked. I mean, I am an exhaustive consumer of culture, and I don't distinguish between high culture and low culture. And, I don't care about a lot of things about it. On the other hand, I'm very critical about it. I like it or I don't, and I'd like to think about why. And I despise fandom. I can't stand it. So, under those circumstances, can you see how difficult it is for me to? I mean, I'm going to make no friends at all if people say, well, we just get together to have fun with ourselves. We just get together. We don't really care about like what happens in the fiction. We don't care what happens to our characters. We don't care. And I say, well, why are you talking to me? Well, I'm a role player too. No, you're not. Oh, you're going to tell me what a role player is? Yes, I am. Because if you're getting together for huddling purposes, you just exited yourself from any imaginable interest of what I'm talking about. I don't care. So I've just been evicted from every role-playing convention on the face of the earth for saying that out loud. I mean, I don't mean that literally. I haven't been evicted. What I am saying is that I've just lost the crowd by saying that. I just put the pressure on, are you doing this for fun or not? And these are exactly the same people who will tell you they do this just for fun. So I say, are you doing this because you wanted to do this particular game or this particular activity with these particular people at that time, and you can be either glad you did or not glad? That's kind of at stake. And they say, oh, no, that's not what we do. We just do it for fun. I say, wait a minute. What I was talking about, that's fun. What you're talking about isn't fun at all. You're going to tell me what fun is? Yeah, I'm going to tell you what fun is. I watch your faces. You're anti-fun. Look at you. So do you guys see where I'm getting at with the sort of intent, the pressure I'm putting on the dialogue, right? By refusing to compromise on that particular point. And that's where I stop being a gamer, right there. So that's an interest. That's something I've learned too about being at Adept Play, is I'm no longer willing to split the difference on that topic. There's no more almosts. There are people who, and perhaps it's the majority of people involved in this activity, who I don't think are involved in the activity. I don't care how many dice they own. I don't care how many games they've bought. I don't care how many rules they've memorized. So now that I've pissed everybody off, what do you guys think of that? Bad, good?
Well, no. Well, so I agree on the kind of general factual level. Maybe I don't have like as strong as a sentiment as you.